My name is Eric Jordan, and I work for the National Council of Urban Indian Health. I have a background in public health and economic development. Let me just get to the right slide here. Okay. My past experiences include working as the small business director for the Colville Tribes Enterprise Corporation, and also I've worked as the economic empowerment manager for the United Indians of All Tribes Foundation in Seattle. I'm enrolled in the Grand Ronde Tribes of Oregon, and I'm a descendant of the Colville and Fort Peck Sioux tribes. And I'm just wondering if you could all take a moment to introduce yourselves in the chat box. If you can give your name and organization, that would be great. So today's objectives are for you to get a perspective on community needs assessments, what are the tools and resources needed to implement, and how they can support your outreach and education goals. Our outline is to give a brief overview of this session, describe what are community assessments, what are the tools you need that you can use, and what are the next steps. So just taking a moment to look at what we've learned to date from our enrollment activities in the field. We learned that we need more education for our consumers to understand basic insurance terms and just the language beyond premiums and co-pays. We learned that we need to partner with more organizations, and this includes non-tribal organizations like universities and churches, and also tribal organizations. We learned that we need more effective advertising specific to our American Indian Alaska Native communities in regards to special enrollment periods, exemption waivers, and other protections. And in general, we learned that more effective social media can improve our outreach and education goals. So in general, we need more out-of-the-box thinking for enrollment strategies. Assessing your community strengths and weaknesses is an important first step in planning your outreach and education goals. So by taking some extra time to learn more about your community, hopefully you'll discover new opportunities to engage your consumers in your outreach planning efforts. So before you start an assessment, consider what specifically you want to learn about your community. An effective assessment will reveal things you did not know before. Formal community assessments may involve online surveys, telephone interviews, and focus groups run by professional consultants. Informal assessments can be as simple as chatting with people at a coffee shop, reading the local newspaper, or discussing issues at community meetings. And a combination of formal and informal can offer effective and inexpensive ways to learn. So effective community assessments not only provide an accurate picture of your community's strengths and weaknesses, but also builds community support and goodwill for your projects. And in order to be effective, community assessments should be systematic, involve a wide variety of community members, and engage people in a meaningful way. The assessment process usually follows a similar cycle. The steps include appointing a team to oversee the assessment, establish the purpose and objectives of the assessment, decide which tools to use based on your available resources, Identify community stakeholders who should participate, including educators, government officials, even law enforcement officials, healthcare professionals, social workers, and other leaders and students. Next is setting a timetable with specific deadlines for completing and reviewing the assessment and for presenting the results to the program or other community stakeholders. And then carry out the assessment, and finally review the assessment results and determine which issues were most commonly identified and which other issues community organizations are addressing. And just to explore, make sure just to ask if there's duplication. Finally, the conclusion of the process involves writing a brief report on your findings and sharing them with your program and community stakeholders who participated. There are many assessment options out there. I selected only a few to highlight and discuss based on their ease of implementation and affordability. I'm only highlighting a few. There's literally hundreds of methods. So I'm going to go over survey tools, asset inventory, community mapping, and focus groups. Survey tool is one of the best known and most popular methods of assessing a community's strengths and weaknesses. They can be simple and targeted at a small group of community stakeholders, or complex, sampling large segments of a population. An effective community survey can reveal a wealth of useful and easily quantifiable information and is a great option for many projects. The pros include its low cost to design and relatively fast to implement. You could literally design a survey in a few minutes and ask people around you the questions, or go out into the community and ask, or you can prepare online and submit. So it's very accessible. The cons include it has the potential for low completion rates, especially if it's longer and more detailed, and you may need financial incentives to increase completion rate. Careful planning is one of the most important aspects of a successful survey. The design of the survey begins with a statement of purpose, or why it's being conducted. And the statement will help you determine what types of questions to ask, how the survey should be administered, and who should be asked to take it. In general, it's just best to keep the survey short with easy to understand questions. A survey's design will change depending on the method of delivery. These include phone, mail, email, website, like I said before, in person. So keep in mind how the people you want to reach tend to communicate. You may need to combine several delivery methods to get a clear picture of the community you're serving. Some interviewing tips include give your participants enough time to complete, respect their opinions, avoid overly personal questions, and assure respondents that their answers are confidential, and make sure you maintain that confidentiality. I listed a couple of resources that you can use online, especially I think most people have heard of SurveyMonkey. it has a free version that's useful for very small and informal surveys, but allows very little customization of the look and feel of the survey tool. No downloads of reports or data uh, can be can be can occur, or you can only collect 10 questions and 100 responses per survey. So it also offers, if you pay, the select version is more costly. It can go up to $200 a year. But that'll give you the unlimited options for questions and responses. I'm not going to go through each of these right now, but they are listed on the resource page at the end of the presentation, so you'll be able to copy them later. I did include one outlier that is the last one, Ask Your Target Market. That's a market research site that I found very valuable to use. So asset inventory. This is a technique for collecting information about a community through observation. And it works best when conducted in person at a community meeting or gathering. Some of the positives include it's fun, it's interactive and engaging, and it's a positive way to interact with your community. The negatives are it can be time intensive, and you can also have geographic limitations based on where you conduct a community meeting and how representative of the community it is where you have that meeting. I'm getting feedback that my sound is going in and out. Can I just get some comments if you can hear me? Or if you're having trouble hearing me? Okay, thank you. Okay, so the types of assets include human assets, organizational assets, physical assets, and then clinic or program assets. Yeah, I need to address the sound. I don't know why it's fading in and out. I'm gonna try one last thing. Okay, how is that? Okay, I'm gonna dial in because this is confusing to me. So I apologize. I need to take a minute to log out and dial in.
Okay, I have dialed in. Hopefully this will address the sound quality issues. Just type me a quick note if you can still hear me okay. All right, sounds good. Thank you. Sorry about that. So again, getting back to the presentation, I just wanted to describe there are 4 types of assets in your community. They include human, organizational, physical, and clinic or program. So human obviously is one of the most important assets in the community. Everyone has unique skills, knowledge, and experience that can contribute to your project's success. Often a project's success will depend on how well the project engages and empowers people in the community. Community assessments should carefully examine the different roles played by community members. Organizations provide vital resources for community projects. Formal organizations like tribes or nonprofits or schools and businesses usually have access to financial resources, technical expertise, and information that might be used in your enrollment efforts. Informal organizations like sports teams or neighborhood associations or even groups of friends who meet regularly at coffee shops, they might be less visible but still play a crucial role in supporting and promoting your outreach efforts. Physical assets include any existing infrastructure, including buildings, parks, public transit systems, healthcare facilities, water and sanitation facilities, recycling centers, libraries, theaters, community colleges. All of these might be used to support a project in some way. Knowing what physical assets a community has can also help you find ideas for projects that might enhance the existing infrastructure. And then, of course, the diverse expertise and professional skills of your clinic or program staff is a tremendous asset. Okay, so to conduct the inventory, small teams of participants walk around the community identifying people, places, and things that they think are valuable. Team members then discuss their choices and create a list for the team and share it with the larger group. So I'm going to just walk through what this activity looks like and give you an overview of how to implement. So take a asset inventory session plan overview. The objectives would be to identify community assets that members of the community think are important to development and reveal why people believe these assets are important. And this activity would take about 2.5 hours to implement. So the procedure in this activity includes introductions and explaining the purpose, randomly dividing participants into groups, introducing team leaders, giving a brief overview of the activity, and then distributing the activity materials. Have group leaders take their teams out into the community to identify assets. This is the lengthy part of the activity. This includes walking around, identifying physical assets, identifying organizational assets, and then taking notes in your groups of teams, After you've gone through this process, then you ask everyone to report their findings internally among themselves. And then you ask every group to develop a list of 5 to 10 assets that they came up with. And then you invite your leaders to briefly share their lists with the rest of the larger group. And that takes 10 minutes, roughly. Finally, in the larger group, you discuss the assets that the groups have in common. And this could, all of these times are flexible. They're just kind of a guideline of how to facilitate this type of activity. And at the end of this, you can collect all the lists and keep them for reference when you're evaluating your asset inventory. Next, the next assessment tool is community mapping, and this is similar to asset inventory, except it takes place internally instead of actively engaging in your physical environment. Community mapping is used to reveal people's different perspectives about their community. So the pros include easy setup, and you can utilize existing community events, or you just utilize where people naturally gather. The cons include that it does have a limitation to those the types of events. I mean, that's not necessarily a con. It just might not have a diversity of perspectives. So what is community mapping? Participants draw a map of their community and mark certain points of importance and noting how often they visit those places. Facilitator leads the discussion about the maps while another facilitator records. So you need two people leading this activity. And then community mapping can be conducted at both the formal and informal gatherings, to which community stakeholders are invited. Okay, so to walk through another activity, to give it an overview, the objectives of a community mapping planning session includes identifying participant use and access to community resources, comparing perceptions of the importance of various community resources, and then identifying participant needs. And again, this is probably around an hour and a half total, but there's flexibility on how you want to manage the time. The procedure includes introducing yourself and explaining the purpose of the session, dividing participants into groups of 4 to 6, and then having them introduce themselves internally, distributing markers and flip charts, and then asking participants to identify a central place. Next, you would ask each group member to mark his or her place of residence on the map. Moving on, you would ask participants to continue adding places of importance to them, and then ask each group to choose 2 or 3 of the following categories and add those places to their map. Next, you would ask ask each group to briefly discuss their map for 10 minutes. Bringing the groups back together, you then discuss and compare all of the maps and collect and compare all these maps at the end of the activity. So in this process, you get a sense of the different perspectives in the group and what is valued differently, and what are the shared similarities. And it can be a powerful process if as long as when you have strong facilitators leading the discussion, they can highlight what are the perceived strengths and weaknesses of your community. The final assessment tool I want to go over is focus group. And the focus group is a carefully planned discussion used to determine a community's preference and opinions on a particular issue or idea. And conducting a focus group requires careful planning and someone skilled at facilitating discussions. Most focus groups consist of 5 to 10 diverse stakeholders, and participants are asked a series of carefully worded questions that focus on different issues in the community. The pros of the focus group are that it is inexpensive. It's just limited to smaller groups of people. The questions are very specific. Some of the cons include it's very formal and it feels kind of like a job interview. So to walk through a focus group activity, objectives include identifying stakeholders' opinions about specific community issues and identifying how stakeholders believe these community issues should be addressed. This can take between 1 and 2 hours. The first step in the focus group is preparing, so selecting a location that's convenient and private for a small group discussion. Developing a list of concepts you wish to discuss. It could be on healthcare or education or a specific issue that's affecting your community. So it's helpful to have another facilitator on hand. And inviting between 10 and 20 people to participate is ideal. The process includes welcoming participants, introductions and explaining the purpose of the focus group, beginning with a warm-up question before moving on to the main issue. So generating discussion flow by starting off with maybe a softer question before getting to the hard stuff. Next is introducing the main topic and guiding the discussion using your prepared list of questions. This can take up to 30 minutes. And it's important to allow every person time to answer and to be respectful of everyone's answer. And then finally, you conclude with summarizing the main points. And this should conclude in about 10 minutes. Again, I wanted to introduce these lists of assessment tools as a way of introducing affordable and accessible tools that you can you can use to implement in your own particular communities. It can be very helpful to support your outreach and education efforts for next year by what you uncover. Again, with the survey tools, it's low cost to set up and to implement, but it can be costly with the potential for incentives and the length of the survey. For asset inventory, this is a fun thing to do. It gets you out and moving and interacting with your community. It's a team effort. The cons include it can take a lot of time to do, and again, it's dependent upon your actual location. Community mapping is an internal process, but it gives you a whole different perspective on how you view your community in comparison to others, what you value more than other aspects of your community. The negatives is that it has the potential to be, well, it may not be as diverse as you'd like it to be if it's taking place at community events. For focus groups, this is a very specific the process. The questions you ask are very specific, and it can provide great detailed answers. The only cons really to focus groups are that it's generally not a discussion type process. It's limited to specific issues. So where do we go from here? Like I said at the beginning of the presentation, I don't know, that might have been a part where no one could hear me that well. But I mentioned that what we've learned to date from our enrollment activities included, like we just need more education for our potential consumers and guiding them through the insurance maze, including the glossary of terms, the information beyond premiums and copays. Also, I mentioned we learned that we need more partners, the ability to partner with other organizations, tribes, universities, community colleges, libraries, other enrollment organizations as well, and just other community organizations in general. We needed to have more effective advertising that's specific to American Indians and Alaska Natives, including special education about special enrollment periods, exemption waivers, and other protections. And then in general, I said that we need more social media expertise in using it in promoting campaign enrollment and outreach campaigns. In general, we just need more out-of-the-box thinking to apply to our enrollment and outreach efforts. And so hopefully these tools will give you some headway into achieving your next year's planning efforts. We have a list of resources that will be, as soon as I reach the question section, you'll see these resources again, so you can access them and download them. But at this point, I'd like to, we can't open it up for discussion, but at this point, I'd like to close the presentation and have you type in your questions in the chat box if you have any. Okay, well, I want to thank all of you for attending today's webinar. I really appreciate your time. Again, I apologize for the technical challenges at the beginning. Hopefully you heard me better later on in the presentation. And just a reminder that we have our next presentation in this series. It'll be Wednesday, August 27th. And just keep that on your calendars, and we will talk to you then. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, we apologize for those technical difficulties, and we were glad we could get it squared away. And we heard Eric loud and clear, and I think we take a lot home from today's presentation. If you can look to the left-hand side, we have a little save the date there for you. Wednesday, August 27th will be the next presentation of this series. Also, on the lower left-hand corner, we have a file for you, and that's a PDF copy of today's presentation for everyone to download and take home. At the top, we have all your web links that are there for you to access more information about what Eric addressed today and the tools used for completing a community assessment and things like that. So again, browse through those links, use them to your advantage. It also looks like we have a question here from Stacy. Eric, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay. Stacy asks, which is the best assessment tool to use on tribal reservations and its counterpart in rural locations?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that all of these will work on tribal reservations. The interactive community mapping process might be a little challenging just because of how spread out reservations are. But at the same time, you can accomplish a lot if you're within the tribal government section of the reservation, just by actually physically visiting all your different departments, ranging from tribal council to the police to the judge. And I know in my community, I was never thrown in jail, so I never went to the courthouse, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't go visit and say hi and appreciate some of our sovereign ability. So, my opinion is focus groups would probably be the best for reservation and rural communities, because you can have those focused conversations in small settings. But again, I think all of these have their merits.
Okay, thank you, Eric. If anyone has any other questions, please type them into the Q&A box, and I'll get them assigned to our presenter. And we'll hold tight here. We'll have a little bit of silence and wait for anyone else who has any questions to present.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, you're right. The strong voices do. Sometimes they can dominate a conversation. I think these survey tools really can give you the best information because they're not. There's no confrontation involved, and you can get people's feedback in a very polite way, and people can fill them out and complete on their own time schedule. So yeah, you're right. Sometimes the strong voices dominate the conversation, and that's why survey tools. If not everyone has internet access, you can easily do paper surveys, and it's still very cost effective, and you can also reach a larger audience than you would with focus groups. So thank you for that. Thank you for that comment, because that's absolutely dead on.
And if anyone missed how or what led to that conversation there, Stacy also continued to ask, but then how do you get more than just a few strong voices with a focus group? And that's what led to Eric's comment, the preceding comment. Stacy also asked, do you have any resources for funding assessments?
Not in terms of money to like a grant resource that I can send your way. I picked these tools based on their ease of use and affordability. So ideally, these would be able to be completed with relatively, very minimal cost. So hopefully hopefully these will, if you use these, you can access the free resources that will allow you to use the survey tools or the focus groups. But no, I'm sorry, I don't have any particular resources to share with you. But that is a great question. I will look for what I can find, and if I find anything, I will send a blast to all the participants.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Stacy, for your questions. If you have any more questions, please continue to enter them into the Q&A pod. And if anyone else has questions, please don't be shy. We are still just about 8 minutes shy of the closing time. Again, I encourage all of the participants to forward your questions on into the attendee chat box or into the Q&A pod, and we'll get them answered as soon as possible. During the silence, I'm going to assume that your wheels are turning and you're just thinking of how to phrase your question. So during the silence here, we'll give it another minute or two for everyone to submit their questions. Hi, Eric. This is Chelsea. I actually have a question. I have a question regarding a timetable for conducting an assessment. What would be the timeline? How long from start to finish would you say that one of these assessments would take?
Well, they can be done relatively fast. I mean, as in like taking less than a week to plan and implement, and actually the analysis may take a little bit longer, but you should be able to do everything within 2 weeks max. But really, you know, the planning probably takes the most time to just so you can set them up correctly. And then also at the tail end of all of these different assessment models, you want to report out your findings to the participants and other stakeholders. So that could be at you know, that's the variable is when you would report it out. Do you want to report it out through like an email or in person, or through a report, an official report? That could take long as well. So everything up to the reporting could be done within 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you for that information. All right, everyone. If there are no more questions today, again, we thank you for your participation and your patience. Again, save the date, August 27th for the next webinar. Download the file, today's presentation on using assessments for your outreach and enrollment marketing strategies. And make these tools here at the top, the web links, use those to your benefit. Thank you very much for participating today. Have a great day.
Chelsea?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you mind putting our contact info slide back up?
Sure.
So just to encourage anyone who has questions, you can contact us directly at our email address.
Okay. If there are any questions that you can't think of today, or you foresee yourself needing more information on this webinar in the future, please contact Eric Jordan, Project Officer there, at the email address shown on the screen. You may also contact Dr. Kimberly Fowler, who's not here today, the TARC Director here at NCUE, at the email address on the screen. I see Stacy also had a question. What is the topic of the next webinar? The topic of the next webinar is not decided yet. Right now we just have the date available for you all. So please save that date. We will be forwarding out more information on that webinar very soon.
Thank you, everybody, for participating today, and we'll see you in a month.